Hello, and welcome to the Daily Reflections from St Mary Magdalene with St Martin's Church on Friday the 3rd of July. If you haven't read the readings for today already, they should be on the screen in front of you now. Such as are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. This song of praise, our psalm this morning, is focused on the praise of God. It encourages us to fully root ourselves in God so that He can guide all that we do. But in our Judges passage, we see the effects of not being firmly rooted in the Lord. The Bible teaches us that God uses imperfect people to fulfill His purposes in the world. This is both inevitable and encouraging, as only Jesus was perfect, and we know that we are not. But the people God uses are very much of their time, and the book of Judges reminds us of this over and over again. The judges were called to rescue the people of Israel from being wiped out by their neighbours. The Holy Spirit equipped them to do this, and they were definitely worshippers of God, although as the story of Gideon, which we looked at last week, tells us, some of them also worshipped idols. But almost all of the judges we're told about in this book would frequently allow their own impulses to come before listening to God. What on earth possessed Jephthah in this passage we read today? He knew that human sacrifice was against the law that God had given Israel. Did he really think that God would be pleased with his vow? Human sacrifice is what some of the surrounding nations did to worship their false gods. In any case, God had already chosen to rescue his people. Did Jephthah think that God's favour could be won by this kind of bargain? The writer of Judges very clearly disapproves of this action. We don't have direct word from God about what would happen, but we will look at the practical consequences of this crime for the Israelites, whom Jephthah led, tomorrow. The difficulty is, as Jesus points out in our Gospel reading, that there will always be opportunities for sin or stumbling, even when we're doing things for God, like Jephthah was. But we follow a God who forgives through Jesus' sacrifice for us, not because we've earned it. As Jesus goes on to say, all the good that we could ever do is nothing more than the obedience that we owe God already. It's not something to pat ourselves on the back for. But rather because he is infinitely loving towards us and gives us what we don't deserve. So let us root ourselves firmly in him so that we can flourish in the courts of our God forever.